everyone, and welcome to another session of Career Beacon. Here we are giving tips and strategies with Anusheel Khalsa for the upcoming SAT exams, and it will definitely help you achieve more and improve your grades, your result. As it is on 7th May SAT, we have already had two sessions earlier where we have discussed tips and tricks for the reading section and then for the writing and language section. And Ms. Anusheel Khalsa, she's a founder of Edu Global Prep. And if you talk about any competitive exam like SAT, ACT, GMAT, or GRE, she has been training students for last decade to achieve and excel in these exams. So not taking much time, I'll invite Anusheel to please continue today's session and help our students to achieve more.
Thank you so much, Kavita ji. Good evening, everyone. And today we'll continue with our session. So today we'll be starting with the math section. So I just hope that yesterday's session and day before yesterday's sessions was really useful for you, and you were able to apply whatever we had learned in those sessions, right? So today we will start with the math part, and before we move to the math section, a quick review. So as you know, SAT is a standardized test and is used by various universities across the globe. Right, even a lot of universities in India, they are using SAT. So SAT exam is it has become very common. Every student who is in grade 10th, 11th, or 12th, they are writing the test because the scores are valid for 5 years, right? So whenever students feel comfortable, they do write the SAT, fine. And as we know that there are total 4 sections in the test. So first section is the reading, second is writing and language. Third section in the math test is, in the SAT test is math, no calculator. So in this section, calculator is not allowed. So you have to answer all the questions without using the calculator, right? And the last section is calculator section where you are allowed to use the calculator. And you can use scientific or graphing calculator. So I would recommend that you must use a calculator which you have been using. And it's not that your friend has scientific calculator and your friend has maybe the graphing calculator and you also want to buy that today, right? So if you have not used a calculator earlier, so just don't buy. You can use simple calculator which has like basic operations and a few scientific ratios as well. You can solve for it, right? So you can use scientific or graphing calculator. Pick the one where with which you are comfortable to use, right? And as discussed earlier, make sure that you are using the breaks wisely, right? Now we'll move to the math part. So these are the topics that are tested on the math section: Heart of Algebra, Problem Solving and Data Analysis, Passport to Advanced Math, and Additional Topics. So in Heart of Algebra, you can see questions that relate to linear equations, systems of linear equations. You may have questions where you are given or you have to solve a system of linear equations, then inequalities and functions, right? Even functions, inequalities are also tested in the form of functions, right? Then we have problem solving and data analysis questions. These questions contain questions from the linear equation, system of linear equations, inequalities, and functions again, right? Then passport to advanced math questions will be non-linear equations, exponents and radicals, polynomials, and meaning and context questions, right? So these questions test a bit complex topics, right? And also there are certain questions from additional topics which cover like questions from geometry, trigonometry, radians, and complex numbers, right? Now, as you can see that the math part is really vast and we just cannot cover all the topics. Even it's like, it's difficult, to just touch up on every concept that is tested in math. So in today's session, we'll focus on what is important to crack the math SAT section, right? Okay, so with this, so let's start with um, this question. So think of a number that comes to your mind first. The first number that comes to your mind. Okay, so we have 5, good, 10, 17. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Now, what is the so what is common in these values? So 2 are odd, 2 are even, right? And also all these numbers, they are all positive values, and these are integer values as well, right? So did I ask, uh, like, think of a positive integer and tell me? No. My question was, think of a number that comes to your mind, right? So think of a number. So uh, so is number only the positive and the integer values? No, a number can be a lot of other kind of values also, right? A number can be, say, a zero. So zero is also a number. We also have negative numbers, -1, -2, -3, and so on. We do have decimal numbers as well. So 1.23456. We do have rational numbers like 7/3. We do have irrational numbers like root of 5, like that. So why we have not come up with these kind of numbers? Why we have only come up with positive integer values? So don't worry. So whenever I ask this question, so the first number given by a student is always a positive integer, right? So this is because like we are dealing with positive integer values in our day-to-day life, right? So we are very used to these numbers. So if we have to think of a number, so that is what the kind of number will have first in our mind, right? So basically, this information, the question was very simple, right? But this tells you that this is like one of the most common traps you will find on SAT, right? The question is asking about a number and you are assuming only the integer value and then you are trying to pick the answer. So we call such questions or such traps as integer traps. So this is what you have to keep in mind. You have to read the question carefully, right? If the question is asking for a number, you can use either integer values, positive values, negative values, decimal values, or even fractions, right? So, so a number does not always mean only positive and integer values, right? So this is one thing I would want you to keep in mind forever, right? Because this trap is not only there on the SAT exam, it is also there in other competitive exams as well, right? Okay, now very simple questions. Now, see, it's really important when you are solving math questions, you must be comfortable with the terms that are used to frame the questions, right? So if we leave the terms that are used to frame geometric questions, there are around 62 terms, mathematical terms that you must be aware of, that are tested on SAT or maybe GRE, GMAT, other exams as well, right? So I'm just using very common terms that are used. And again, we'll try to, maybe learn something from these terms as well, right? Okay, examples of even numbers. So the number everyone knows, it's like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Can even numbers be negative numbers as well? Yes, you can have -2, -4, -6, -8, and so on, right? Okay, then we have odd numbers. So odd numbers are the numbers that, cannot be that are not divisible by 2. Divisible by 2 means when you divide a number by 2, remainder is not 0, right? So examples of odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7. Again, odd numbers can be positive, they can be negative as well, right? So we have been using the terms positive and negative. So positive means greater than 0. Great. And negative means less than 0, right? So what is non-positive? So how would you define the term non-positive? So non-positive is something which is not positive, right? And if I ask this question to many students, what they'll say, so non-positive numbers are all negative numbers. So that means -1, -2, -3, -4, fine? Okay, and similarly, we'll say the non-negative is like not negative. Not negative means positive, 0, like 1, 2, 3, 4. But one mistake they are making here is that they do not understand that 0 is neither negative nor positive. So if you are talking about non-positive integers, you have to consider 0 as well. When you are considering non-negative integers, then also you must use 0 so that you don't fall for the trap, right? So just remember, non-positive means less than or equal to 0. So that means you have to consider the term 0 as well, right? And non-negative means it is greater than or equal to 0. Clear? Any doubts? Any questions? Now, one more thing I would like to add here is that 0 is an even integer. Not many students are aware that 0 is also an even integer. So if you have a question, like there's a very common question that how many even integers between -3 and +5. So even integers between -3 and +5 are -2, 0, 2, and 4. Students will generally skip 0 and they'll pick the trap answer 3, right? So this is a big trap. So whenever a question wants you to consider like even integers that lie between negative values and some positive value, don't forget to consider 0, right? So 0 is one number. That is why we say that 0 is one number which is really important but neglected digit. It is really neglected by most of the students because they do not consider 0 because they are not aware of the properties of 0, right? So you can just remember that 0 is neither negative nor positive, but 0 is an even integer, right? Okay. Now let's try to answer this question. So in a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. Now, can you answer this question? No, you cannot. Why? Because you don't have a complete question here, right? But what most students do here, they read the statement in a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus equal to 0, b squared minus 4ac is greater than equal to 0. Then the roots are real and distinct, or they can be equal as well, right? So here, your answer may be correct, may not be correct, because we really don't know what exactly the question is asking, right? So one thing you have to keep in mind is whenever you are solving a math question, you have to read the final question because that is what is asked by the question, right? Now, if you don't know what the question is asking, you cannot, your answer may or may not be the correct answer, right? Okay. Now, let's try this question. So in a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, b square minus 4ac is greater than 0. So this is exactly the same statement we had on the previous slide, right? And now we have the question. Then all of the following could be true except. So you can see, like the question that generally comes to our mind without reading the full question may not be the question, may not be something which is actually asked by the question, right? So it is really important that we read the entire question and underline what the question is asking. So this question is asking all of the following could be true except. Now, except questions are, these are opposite kind of questions. So you have to eliminate the answer choices that are true and you have to pick the odd one, right? So to answer such questions, what we can do, we can just strike out this word and let's try to answer the questions. All of the following could be true. So whichever is true, we'll put a Y against it, and whichever is not true, we'll put N against it, right? And we'll pick the odd one, right? Now we know if b square minus 4ac is greater than or equal to 0, then the roots are real. So A can be the correct answer. Roots are equal. Yes, this is true when b square minus 4ac is equal to 0. So this is also true. Roots are irrational. Irrational means something that cannot be represented in the form of p by q form. So the numbers, examples of irrational values are something under the root side is irrational, right? So if b square minus 4ac is not a perfect square, then the roots can be irrational, right? So this is possible as well. And option B says roots are imaginary. Now, roots will be imaginary if and only if b square minus 4ac is less than 0, right? So for this question, the answer would be no, because this is not true. And because this was an except question and we have to pick the odd one out. So the correct answer for this question is D, right? So the learning that we can derive from this question is that you have to read the final question so that you know whatever you are solving for is what the question is asking, right? So this is really important. And if you are not doing this, then you are taking you to the trap answers, right? Okay. Now we'll move to another question. So I have tried to incorporate questions here today with which we'll have a lot of learnings, right? So please keep in mind that in case you want to take some notes, you can take notes side by side, right? Okay. So let's start with this question. Now, through this question, we'll try to understand what kind of trap answers are placed by the College Board in the answer choices, right? So we'll focus on identifying trap answers on these on this question. Okay, so let's try the question. The price of a mobile was reduced by 20%. Under a station scheme, the new price was further reduced by 10%. By approximately what percent would the price now have to be increased in order to restore the price of the mobile to its original amount? Now, this is what the question is asking. By approximately what percent would the price now have to be increased in order to restore the price of the mobile to its original amount? So the question is asking for percent increase, right? Now, this question involves percentages, right? Fine. So you can assume a number, easy number. You can assume 100 and then you can work the question, right? Okay. Now the question is asking like by what percent the price has to be increased, right? Now the question says the price was first reduced by 20% and then there was another decrease in the price by 10%, right? So if you simply add these two numbers, you end up with value 30, right? So 30 is the obvious answer. So a student might say, okay, there was a reduction of 30, so 30 needs to be increased, right? So, but this is actually a wrong answer. So we'll see how. So I'll show the explanation, like solution to this question as well. Another student might say, okay, 30 has been reduced and now I have to increase this amount to the original. So if I assume say 100 for the amount, for the price, then the difference between 30 and 100 is 70. So 70 may be the correct answer, right? But here it is not. Why? Because this question is using simple manipulation of the numbers. So this can be eliminated. Then we have, now we are down to two answer choices, right? Now, if you read carefully and you understand the question carefully, so if we assume the original value to be 100, okay, so a student is saying and the answer is 28. Okay, so let's see whether 28 is the correct answer or not. Fine. So if we assume the price to be 100, right? So let's assume the original price of the article is 100. First reduction is 20%. So what is 20% of 100? 20. So that means the price is reduced by 20. And now what is the new price after first reduction? It is 80. Now, under a station scheme, there was another 10% discount. So 10% on 80 or 10% on 100? Obviously, the 10% on 80 because this is the new price. So what is 10% of 80? 10% of 80 is 8. So if you subtract 8 from 80, you end up with 72. Now, this is the final price after both the discounts, right? And now the question is asking by approximately what percent would the price now have to be increased in order to restore the price to its original amount. That means we have to increase amount from 72 to 100 and we have to find the percent change, right? So percent change, to find the percent change, the formula that is required is difference of the two numbers over the original number into 100. Right? Now, what is the difference between 100 and 72? The difference is 28. So we will put 28 here. And what is the original number here? So here, original does not mean the original number that we started with, right? So in this case, so when we are dealing with percent change, original number is from what value to what value you want to find the change. So now we want to find the change from 72 to 100. So original number here is not 100, it is 72. So had this number was had this number been 100, then the answer would have been 28. But so this you can approximate as so this is approximately 40%, right? And the answer choice which is close to 40% is 39. So 39 is the correct answer for this question. And 28 we can eliminate because this was one of the numbers that came in between the calculations when the calculations were not over. So we call such answer choices as partial answers. So 28 is a partial answer, not the correct answer. So you have to be very, very careful. Yeah, if you are not aware of the fact that original number we need to use here is 72, then definitely anyone can consider it as like 28 over 100 into 100. So that will give you 28 as the answer. But this is a big trap. So you need to get rid of this number, right? So if you read the questions carefully, it will be easier for you to identify the trap answers, right? Now, with every question, generally we don't identify trap answers because if we know the solution, what we do? We straight away jump to solve the questions, right? But if you are running short of time and you feel that you are stuck, you're not getting anything, then you can start identifying the trap answers, right? But yes, when you start preparing, you should keep in mind that as you solve the question, try to keep in mind the characteristics of trap answers so that you can get rid of them, and you will realize that without solving the question completely, you have eliminated the 3 wrong answer choices and you have the correct answer with you, right? So it's really important to keep a note of the trap answers, the characteristics of trap answers, right? Okay, so I think whosoever has given the answer 28 is clear to him or her that 28 answer is not the correct answer. It is in fact a partial answer, right? And partial answers can never be the correct answer. So you need to eliminate the partial answers, right? Okay, now let's move to another question. So let's see what we can derive from this question. Joe wants to buy 5 pencils that cost 50 cents each. After selecting the pencils, he gives $10 at the cash counter. How much change in dollars does Joe receive? So, quickly solve. Very simple question. Relationship between dollars and cents is same as rupee and paise. So that makes the calculations quite simple. So, okay, so if Joe wants to buy 5 pencils that cost 50 cents each, then the cost of pencils is 5 into 0.50, that is $2.50, right? And Joe has given $10 at the cash counter. So how much change will Joe receive back? So it's 10 minus 2.50. So that will give you 7.50. So this is your answer, right? I hope everyone is getting the same answer. Now on SAT, you won't get the questions, that direct questions, right? So what College Board might do, the College Board will convert this question using the variables, right? So into an algebraic question, right? Okay, now if we solve this question, Joe wants to buy X pencils that cost Y cents each. After selecting the pencils, he gives $Z at the cash counter. How much change in dollars does Joe receive? It's very simple. You only have to perform the same operations that we did in the previous question, and we can get the answer in terms of the variables X, Y, and Z. Okay. So someone says Z minus XY. Great. This is like the answer given by almost every student because I've been discussing this question since years, and it's hardly one or two students give a different answer, right? And you will see that this answer is the first answer in the answer choices, right? So if I see whatever I'm getting by simply manipulating the variables or forming the expression based on the simple calculations. So if I see that A is the correct answer, will I ever move to B, C, and D and check whether other answers can be the correct answers? No, right? So this is what Joe does. So remember, you don't have to do that, right? So instead, whenever you see variables in the questions or in the answer choices, what you can do to simplify the things, you can use numbers, right? Now let's see why option A is not the correct answer. Now this is in fact a big trap. We'll see how. Now let's assume, so whatever numbers we have used here in this question, so we'll use the same number. So we'll assume X as 5, Y as 15, and Z as 10. Right? So if I solve option A, what do I get? I get 10 minus 5 into 50. Good. Good, Arnav. Your answer is correct. The correct answer is not A. It is in fact D. So let's see how. So it's 10 minus 5 into 50 is going to give me minus 240. Right? So 240 cannot be the correct answer because we know when we solve this question, our answer was 7.50. So option A does not match 7.50. So my target answer must be 7.50. Right? So this is out. Option B, it says 5 into 50 minus 10. So this will give you 240. So this is again not equal to 7.50. And this will give you negative 2.40. So this is again out. You can't have negative, you can't get back negative values as the answer. So D has to be the correct answer. So if you simply put the values here, you have 10 minus 5 into 50 upon 100. So this will give you 10 minus 2.5, which is 7.5. Now, what mistake we did here when we were dealing with just the variables? Now, this question wanted you to use the conversion between cents and dollars, right? So, what happens is when you are dealing with numbers, that calculation, the conversion factor you consider at the back of your mind, right? But when you are using variables, you have to show that conversion factor. You have to use that conversion factor explicitly, right? Otherwise, you will fall for the trap, right? So the learnings that we can derive from this question is that whenever you see variables in the questions or in the answer choices, you can use simple values and make the question simple for you, right? So this method is called plugging in. And so here what we are doing, we are using values, right? And we are converting an algebra question into an arithmetic question, right? And I'm sure that once you master the technique, you know what kind of numbers you need to use, then there's no point that you will make mistake in such kind of questions, right? Okay. Now let's move to the next question. Any question to anyone here for this particular question? So in case you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. Now we'll move to the next question, right? So in the previous question, we learned that we should use numbers that will make the math simple, right? So let's use some values. as per the conditions given in the question, right? So the question here is asking which of the following must be true. So you have to pick an option that must be true, right? And the question says if A by B plus A minus B is equal to C, where A is a negative integer, B is a positive integer, then which of the following must be true? So if in case you are given some condition in the question, then you must assume values as per the condition in the question, right? So here question says that A is a negative integer. So let's assume some value for some negative value for A. So let's assume A as -2 and B is a positive integer. So let's assume B as 2. So what you need to do now, you have to put these values in the given expression. So you have A by B plus A minus B. So this becomes -2 upon 2 plus -2 minus 2. So you end up with -1, -2, -2. So this is -5. Oh, we do have the value -5 because our answer, the answer with we got after the kind of numbers that we assume is -5. So should I pick B or should I analyze each and every answer choice? I should analyze each and every answer choice. So C is not equal to 0. I can eliminate that. C is -5. So I'll keep this with me and I still need to check the other two answer choices. C says the value of C is negative. Is -5 negative? Yes. So let's keep this. And D says the value of C is positive. -5 is not positive. So we can get rid of D, right? Now we are down to two answer choices, right? So as we discussed in reading, that even if you feel that option A or B is correct, still you need to analyze C and D. The same thing is true for math as well, right? Now you are down to two answer choices. So what you need to do is, you need to, if you have time, then you can plug in another set of numbers. So you can assume, say, A as -4, B as 2. I can't change the sign. A has to be negative, B has to be positive, right? So, but I'm just changing the value of the variable. So whenever you need to change the value of variable, you must change the value of one variable at a time, right? So when we do this, what we get? So -4 by 2, -4, -2. So what do you get? -2, -4, -2. So you get -8. Now let's check. Now this is my target answer. Now is C -8? So option B gives me -5. So this is out. Is -8 a negative? Is negative? Yes. So for whatever numbers you assume for A and B, the value for this expression will always be negative. Not necessarily that it will be -5. It can be -5, it can be -8 as we have seen, or it can be any other number based on the values that you have used for these variables, right? So just remember that whenever you see variables and there is some condition given in the question, you must use numbers based on the condition, right? And whenever the question is asking for must be true, make sure you are plugging in more than once, right? Some students, what they do, they say, okay, we can, because this is very simple, negative over positive and then positive, negative. So we know the answer has to be negative. So if you are simply trying to apply logic, so it's like negative over positive, then positive plus some negative number and minus some positive number. So ultimately you end up with minus something minus something minus. So the result has to be negative. And depending on the numbers, you can have different values, right? So if you go by that logic also, then also you can see that the value of C will always be negative. So C will always be true, right? Any doubts, any questions? So from this question, we have learned that whenever there is some condition, assume values based on the conditions, right? And try to avoid using similar numbers, right? Okay, now we'll move to the next question. And in case you have any doubts, please do post your doubts in the chat so that we can discuss your doubts as well, right? Okay, now here, what you can see in the answer choices, you can see we have numbers and that too integers, right? And when you have numbers in the answer choices, that clearly indicates the question is asking for some quantity as the answer, right? So if we read the last part of the question, which is the final question, how many of the students in the class donated 3 books for the underprivileged. So what do these answer choices indicate? The answer choices are giving me one of the answers for the question, whatever the question is asking, right? So in case you have a quantitative question, you can always apply a technique called theta, which is plugging in the answers. You are plugging in the answers here, right? So what we need to do, you need to label the answer choices with whatever the question is asking for, right? So the question is asking how many students in the class donated 3 books. So let's say answer choices are giving us the number that donated 3 books here. So now we'll start reading from the very first word from the question. Okay. Students of a certain class donated a total of 65 books for underprivileged. That means total books donated by students is 65, right? Each of the 25 of this class donated either 2 books or 3 books. So this indicates that there are total 25 students in the class, right? Okay, now when we have numbers, so what we can do instead of setting up any expression, right, using variables, what we can do, we can simply use the numbers given in the answer choices, right? So we can start with either B or C, right? So which option would you like to start with, B or C? Quickly type in the chat box. Kavita ji, you need to help me. What answers students are typing? They want to start with option B or C. Okay, B. Let's start with B. So if 18 students donated 3 books, then number of books donated by these 18 students is how much? 18 times 3. So that means 54. And how many students are left now? There are total 25 students. So if 18 students donated 3 books, then how many students donated 2 books? That is simple, 25 minus 18. So that will give you 7. Now 7 students donated 2 books. So number of books donated by these 7 students is 7 into 2. That gives you 14. So how many total books are donated by these 25 students? So that is 54 plus 14. This gives you 68. Oh, but the question says that a total of 65 books were donated. So that means with number 18, I'm getting a higher value, right? A value which is higher than the clue given in the question statement. So what I need to do, I can straight away eliminate A and B. And I need to move towards smaller number, because when I work the question with a smaller number, smaller value, I will get a smaller answer, right? So let's quickly try this. So 15 students donated 3 books. So that means they donated 45 books, and remaining 10 students donated 2 books. That means total number of books donated by these 10 students is 20, and the total books donated is 45 plus 20, that gives you 65. So 15 has to be the correct answer, right? No need to check 10 because you are using numbers, and we know that only one answer can be the correct answer. So with if with only one number you are getting the correct answer, no need to check any other answer. So this is the beauty of this technique called beta, right? So what you can do, whenever you see numbers in the answer choices, you can always apply beta. And when you see variables, then you have to go with, you have to choose a number. You have to use plugging in. And only these 2 types of answer choices are there on the SAT map. So if you master these 2 techniques, then I'm sure you can answer all the questions that are there in the SAT math section, right? Any questions, any doubts in these 2 techniques? Okay. Now let's move to the next question. Again, as I said, reading the question carefully is very, very crucial for your SAT, right? So let's try this question. Mod of n minus 3 plus 2 is equal to 4, right? Now what students will do? The moment they look at this in these absolute value, this expression with absolute numbers, what they'll do? They'll start solving it, right? So mod of n minus 3 plus 2 is equal to 4. So simply means this is 2. So n minus 3 is equal to 5. Oh, you have 5, so they'll try to pick 5. So is the question asking what is one of the values of n? No. The question is asking how many values of n satisfy the equation above. So from this, you do get one value, right? So, but can there be other value? Yes, there can be, because we are dealing with absolute numbers, right? So whenever you have absolute expression, what you need to do? You need to first consider it once a positive expression, and once you need to solve the equation with a negative value to that expression, right? So, so like you have taken here this as the positive one. So the next one you have to use is minus of n minus 3 is equal to 2. So if you solve this expression, you get minus n is equal to minus 1 or n is equal to 1. So again, this is partial answer. The question is asking for how many values of n, right? So how many values of n satisfy the inequality, the equation above? So there are 2 values. So the correct answer here is 2. So again, SET is, remember, SET is famous for, asking questions that have a twist, right? So just don't add your assumptions to the question. So read the question carefully and then pick the answer. Any questions or any doubts? Okay. Now this question relates to functions. The question here says the function f is defined by f of x is equal to x plus 3 into x plus 1. And the question says the graph of f in the xy plane is a parabola. Which of the following intervals contains the x coordinate of the vertex of the graph of x? Right? Now, what students generally do? They will say, okay, the question is asking for the vertex of the graph of x. So what they'll do, they'll try to convert this equation, which is given in the x-intercept form, into vertex form, right? But you don't have to do that, right? So if you read the question carefully, the question is not asking for the vertex, not asking for x and y both, like the x and y coordinates of the vertex. The question is only asking for the x coordinate of the vertex, right? So if you know the fact that parabolas are always symmetrical, right? So x-intercept form simply indicates this parabola will cut the x-axis at 2 points. One is -1 and the other is -3, right? And if you are able to figure this out, so if you know the fact, then another property of parabola is that parabolas are always symmetrical, right? And one thing I would like to add here, the drawings that I made, they are always not drawn to scale. So please, extremely sorry for that. Okay, so this parabola, because they are symmetrical, so that means the x-intercept of the or x coordinate of the vertex would be the midpoint of these two values. So what is the midpoint of -3 and -1? So midpoint of -3 and -1 is -2. So you need to check which option in the answer choices will give you a value where x can take a value -2. So C and D are straight away out, because here you have positive numbers and we are looking for a negative value for x, right? And A is again out, so B is the correct answer here, right? So what learning can we derive here from this question? So the learning that we can derive here is that you're not supposed to solve the question, using longer method always. So if you read the question carefully and if you are aware of certain properties, right? If you're aware of certain tips, then you can answer the question without actually solving it in less than 20 seconds as well, right? Of course, I'm explaining, so I'm taking a little longer to do that. But once you are aware, once you master all these things, then definitely you can solve this question in less than 20 seconds, right? So these are all, time-saving tips as well. So this is what you need to keep in mind. Not only the concepts, not only the formulas, you also need to understand certain properties that will help you to answer the questions quickly, right? Okay, now let's try this question. Okay, Christine needs to purchase both t-shirts and pairs of shorts for a vacation. At a local clothing store, 5 t-shirts and 3 pairs of shorts will cost her $30.5, and 2 t-shirts and 6 pairs of shorts will cost her $41. Christine needs 7 t-shirts and 9 pairs of shorts. If all the t-shirts cost the same and all the shorts cost the same, how much she spends on her clothing at the store? So here we are given certain information. So we have certain information here. So what we need to do, we need to translate that into equations, right? So here the question says that all the t-shirts cost the same and all the shorts cost the same. So let's assume t-shirts is given as say T, and shorts, number of shorts is S, right? Let's assume the cost of t-shirts is T and the cost of shorts is S. So as per the information here, 5 t-shirts and 3 pairs of shorts will cost $30.50. So you will have one equation here, 5T plus 3S is 30.50. The next equation, the next information is 2 t-shirts and 6 pairs of shorts will cost $41. And the question is asking, Christine needs 7 t-shirts and 9 pairs of shorts. So the question is asking how much she spends. So the question is asking what is the cost of 7 t-shirts and 9 pairs of shorts. Now, how can we answer the question? Now we have 2 equations with 2 variables. So what students will do generally, they'll straight away jump to solve the equations together, like system of equations using like some substitute method or the other method, right? But if you look at the equations carefully and if you manage your scratch work nicely, what you can do, you can again save a lot of your time. So whenever you see that you are forming a system of equations, you should always stack the equations together, right? So if you write it like this, and 2t plus 6s is 41, and the question is asking for 7t plus 9s. So see, first you should check that by just adding or subtracting the 2 equations, can you figure out what the question is actually asking? So can you figure out what is 7t plus 9s? So if you are focusing on the question, you will realize that if you simply add these 2 equations together, you will end up with 7t plus 9s. And what you need to do, you only need to add the 2 values and you will have the answer, right? So you can save again a lot of your time by reading the question with proper focus. What exactly the question is asking and what information is given to you. So based on that, you can quickly answer the questions, right? So otherwise, you may have fallen for the trap answer, maybe the partial answer or some obvious calculation mistake, right? Okay. Then we have another question here. So this is from geometry and the question is testing circle concepts, right? So here the question says a circle in the xy plane has equation x plus 3 the whole square plus y minus 1 the whole square is equal to 25. Which of the following points does not lie in the interior of the circle? Now this is the equation of the circle, and in this equation we get to know that the center of the circle is at -3 and +1, right? And this is the general equation. Okay, so if we consider the general equation of the circle, so it is x minus h the whole square plus y minus k the whole square is equal to r square, right? So here h and k gives you the center, the coordinates of the center of the circle, right? And if you need to figure out that which point lies inside the circle or outside the circle or on the circle, what you need to consider is this. So this is nothing but 5 squares. That means radius is 5. So one option is that you use this center and you have the coordinates given in options A, B, C, D. So you calculate the distance using the distance formula and figure out that like whether the distance is equal to 5 or less than 5 or more than 5, right? And other option is, again, as we discussed, that whenever you see variables, you can always use numbers, right? Now, because you have particular coordinates given in the answer choices, so you need to simply use these coordinates and check, right? And for these kind of questions, because you cannot decide whether the coordinates are arranged in which order, so you have to try each and every answer choice, right? So what you need to simply do here is put the coordinates given in option A in the given equation and check whether you get the answer as 25 or less than 25 or more than 25, right? So the fact that we will use here is, if the answer is less than 25, that means the point lies in the interior of the circle. And if the value is equal to 25, that means the point is lying on the circle. And if the value is greater than 25, then the point will lie in the exterior of the circle. Right? And the question here is asking which of the following points does not lie in the interior of the circle. That means it should be either on the circle or outside the circle, right? So if we put the values of x and y in the given equation, what do we get? So we get -7 plus 3 the whole square plus 3 minus 1 the whole square. So what value do you get? So you end up with -4 the whole square plus 2 square. So this gives you 16 plus 4, 20. Now 20 is less than 25. That means this is in the interior. So we'll eliminate option A. So if you try option B, so you have 0 the whole square plus 0 the whole square. So you get 0. Again, less than 25. This is also in the interior of the circle. So this is R. If you use 0, 0, you get 3 square plus -1 square. So you end up with 10, which is again less than 25. So that means this is also in the interior of the circle. So the correct answer has to be D. And to be sure, you can quickly check. So this will give you 6 square, and we know 6 square is 36. Definitely this has to be greater than 25. No need to check any other information. So D has to be the correct answer, right? So it's important to understand what the question is asking, and from the basic techniques like plugging in theta, how can you solve the questions faster without spending, without falling for the trap answers and without getting stuck in between the calculations. Any questions, any doubts, please ask. Okay. The next question I have chosen is the grading question. And again, there is like important learning that we can derive from here, right? Okay. So here the question says, and for this question, because none of the answer choices is given, we need to find the answer on our own, right? Okay, the question says an online music club has a one-time registration fee of $13.95 and charges 0.49 to buy each song. If Emma has $50 to join the club and buy songs, what is the maximum number of songs she can buy? So how will we solve? The question says there is one-time registration fee. So and each song costs $0.49. Right? And Emma has $50. So how many songs can she buy? So one-time registration fee is $13.95. So how much she can spend on purchasing songs is $50 minus 13.95. So what value do you get here? So you get 36.05, right? Now, for $0.49, you can purchase one song. Then for $36.05, how many songs can be purchased? So we can set up the proportion and we can solve. So from here, we can get the number of songs that can be bought by Emma is 36.05 by 0.49, right? So whenever you see that you have to perform complex calculations, you will, so either you can approximate in case you have this kind of question in no calculator section, and if you have calculator, like you have this question in calculator section, then probably you can use your calculator, right? So I have taken this question from a calculator section, so you can use your calculator. So right now you can use your the calculator available in your mobiles and calculate how many songs can Emma buy in $36.05. Okay, so if you use your calculator, you will end up with a value which is 73.57. So if the calculator says that Emma can buy 73.57 songs, then what will be the answer for this question? So do you need to round this number? If yes, do you need to round it to the nearest higher integer, the next integer, or you need to round it down to the nearest lower integer? Okay, so can you buy number of songs in decimals? No. You can either buy one song, you can either buy 10 songs, you can never buy 10.5 songs, right? So that simply means you have to drop this decimal value, and the correct answer for this question would be 73. So what we are doing here, we are applying a bit of logic here as well, right? So you can't, if you put the answer as 74, then Emma doesn't have enough money to buy 74 songs because she can only buy 73.57 songs, right? But yes, she can definitely buy 73 songs and she will be left with some cents with her, right? So the correct answer for this question would be 73, right? So you have to consider the fact that somewhere you, on certain questions, you need to apply the logic, right? Real time scenario. So these questions are kind of like, they are tested under real life situation questions, right? So you have to apply certain logic to get to the correct answer. Fine. Any question, any doubts? So these were all the questions that I wanted to share, and through these questions, I wanted to derive the learnings that we have had today.
Anusheel was so well explained, and even I was seeing it. I was doing, algebraic expression and all, but great tips. It will save a lot of time for the students.
Yes, because
We have some questions, so I'll just take two of them. Then you can give the tips, final tips. Is math questions are ordered in difficulty?
Yes, you can say that. Like there's rough order of difficulty. So initial questions are comparatively easier than the later questions in the test. So
Okay,
it would be, yeah, but then depending on the kind of question a student gets. So again, as I said, maybe suppose I'm not comfortable with complex numbers and the very first question is testing complex numbers, then probably that is not a good question for me to start with. So I may want to skip that question and move to the next. And when the time is left, like if I'm left with some time, I can always come back to this question. Otherwise, I can use the alphabet of the day. So out of ABCD, I can anything.
It is again what you said in your earlier session that everyone has their own strengths and
Yes.
they are good at. So accordingly, you should try the questions
Yes.
depending on the time. And the another question, which is how many mock tests shall I practice in a day? Keeping in mind that he's appearing on 7th.
See, one test per day, not more than that, right? Because as we discussed in the earlier sessions, that you must give yourself some time to analyze your performance. So where you are going wrong, what mistakes have you made? You need to maintain your error log as well. Fine. And then in case you feel that you need to revise a few concepts, you need to do that before you appear for the next mock test, right? And because now we don't have even like a week with us before the 7th May test, 7th May test. So I won't recommend more than 2 tests. So what you can do, you can write one mock test tomorrow morning, analyze everything, analyze your test performance, and in case you have any doubts, you can talk to your mentor, you can talk to your friends. किसी से के साथ भी you can discuss that why your answer is wrong and why the other answer is correct, right? So once you analyze that, and once you have reviewed everything, then you should write another mock test, right? So I would suggest that one test you can write on Monday, and the next test you can write on Wednesday, right? And on Thursday, again, so Wednesday only you can review the test, and Thursday you can revise everything. Nothing to be done on Friday. Friday is like your relaxing day. So that is really important because Saturday you have your exam, so you have to be free from all sort of tensions. So कहीं घूमने नहीं जाना, सिर्फ relax करना है अच्छे से. You must have a good sleep so that you are fresh when you are writing the test on Saturday.
Okay, I have questions on WhatsApp also. Is by the students who are appearing on 7. Is it necessary when they do a mock test, they should always do with the bubble sheet?
Yes, it is very important.
How important it is?
Because if you're not practicing right now, filling the bubbles within the given time frame, you will, believe me, you will not be able to complete your test on your test day. And then make sure that you have to reappear in the August attempt, right? Because if you're not practicing filling the bubbles right now, you will make mistakes while filling the bubbles. You will filling them partially, or maybe the mark is going outside the bubble. So that will make your answer wrong, even if you have filled the correct bubble. So the computer will take your answer as a wrong answer, and your score will be like decreased, right? So you should practice. So whatever आप जब भी mock test लिखे हो, even I would recommend if you are doing some sectional practice also. So I recommend my students to use bubble sheet. So they don't have to simply mark their answers as ABCD, 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 and then send the answers to me. No, they have to fill the bubbles, and so that we can guide them that you have not filled this particular bubble correctly, and they are careful. They are cautious when they fill the bubble next time.
Okay. Regarding the bubbles only, there's one more question. A lot of people recommend that one strategy could be you can solve on your paper all the answers and fill on the bubble sheet together, and you save time. How true it is?
No, I won't recommend that. So what I can see, if you are right now, if you are in the reading section, I would recommend initial passages that you are doing, you can do passage by passage, right? And when you are working the last 2 passages, it should be question by question, in case you are running short of time. And the last passage, definitely question by question.
So what you're suggesting is, they should go by, like, one passage has around 7 to 8 questions, I believe.
10, 11 questions.
10, 11 questions. Yes. So they can complete that together.
So but when it comes to the initial passages, yes, they can do that. And towards the end, like when they are left with say 2 passages, then they should do that question by question, or maybe they're like solving say 5 questions together and then filling the bubbles. So it's basically when they flip the like move to the next page, when they have to flip over to the other side, then probably they can fill the
but
bubbles.
I think all the students, please practice that now. When you're practicing really mock tests, yes. You cannot I'll try this strategy at the end on the exam. So try with the bubble sheet, as ma'am has mentioned that you should practice mock test with the bubble sheet only. And if you're following this strategy, it does save some time, but you have to go by section by section, or like 10 questions you have done, then you can fill for 10 questions, and then gradually move that way. But do practice it from now. From now, you should try practicing that. Yes.
And for math section, I would recommend whatever questions you have on 2 pages together. So once you have like both the pages open in front of you, so you answer all the questions on the 2 pages, and before you flip over the page, you fill the bubbles. And towards the end, again, depending on the time, you need to decide like whether you should go question by question. It all depends on how much time you are left with.
Okay. a lot of time, many students, I would say, they want everything to be correct. But at times, there are students, uh, they are not left with more time, or they're not clear about the question or not certain about it. So, do you recommend that they should then guess the answer and then do it?
Definitely.
Not leave
So if there is no negative marking on SAT. So none of the answers should be marked blank, right? So you have to answer every question, even if you are not solving all the questions, right? So you should mark something, some or the other alphabet for all the questions, because it may happen that by fluke you are getting it right.
Yes, and
yes, but because there is no negative marking, right? So you can take a chance. So earlier we were not recommending SAT students because there used to be a negative marking, right? But now because there is no negative marking, so student must fill all the bubbles, irrespective of whether they are answering all the questions, solving all the questions or not. Right? And yes, in case you feel that you are stuck on a question, it is not a good idea that you are skipping any question, right?
Okay, I would. It's like if you are not clear about any question, you leave that on bubble, as ma'am has mentioned. You should go by section. In passage one, you should go one passage by one passage, and then marking all the question of that passages in your bubble sheet. And in case you are not at all sure about the answer, leave that page by page. You move, and at the end, if you are, then you take a guess over there. And today we are done a maths one, so I'll add to that. It has 25% chances that you're correct.
Yes, each answer choice has 25% probability to be correct answer. Yeah.
So last, I would ask you to please sum up all the strategies for the math together.
Sure. Okay, so these are the quick tips for the math part. Know the concepts, tested on the SAT. This is really important. So all the concepts must be on your tips. All the formulas must be on your tips, right? Though a few, the reference box in every section will contain certain formulas. But if you remember those formulas, it is great, because then you don't have to flip back and see on which page you are given those formulas. So you will again save some of your time there, right? And as you must have seen that I have underlined the final question in every question, so you should do that as well, right? And then you can use numbers to avoid the trap answers on the questions where variables are involved. And it's important to remember the quick tips for each question type, so that you can save a lot of your time, and you can spend that time on time-intensive questions, right? Use your questions booklet as your scratch paper, right? So as I was writing on the screen, so my screen was my scratch paper. So your test booklet should be your scratch paper, right? Don't skip steps. Perform all the steps, even if you have to say that n minus 3 is equal to 4. So when you are taking 3 on the other side, you are writing n is equal to 4 plus 3. Do not skip steps, right? And no calculations in your head, because if you perform your even simple calculations in your head, when you have to take some number from left side to the right side, then you may make silly mistakes. So avoid doing that, please. And one more important tip, that negative answers on grading questions are just not possible. You don't have a bubble for a negative answer, right? So in case you end up with some negative answer, that's a clue that you have gone somewhere wrong. So you need to quickly check your calculations so that you can correct your answer there, right? And apply logic, make approximations when you are running short of time. That is really important. And fill bubbles correctly. That's the most important thing, right? So we have been discussing this point since last 2 days, right? And you don't have to leave any question unanswered, because there is no negative marking on institute. And do the easy questions first. Whichever questions you find easy, do them first. And you can, but do mark the questions which you are not attempting, right? So that
I'd like to add to this, if you spend 30 seconds on a problem and you aren't clear, how I'll get the answer, skip and go to the next question.
Yes. Because it happens sometimes that after solving a few questions, you'll get a clue. Okay, I may solve that previous question that I have left using another method. So that can be done. That should be done in time. You should not spend too much time, say 2 minutes or 3 minutes on one question. Okay? And understand the question is important. And then eliminate the partial answers. Partial answers are never correct, whether you have reading section or the writing section or the math section, right? And when you are practicing full length tests, you have to simulate yourself. So that means you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or maybe 5:30 in the morning, and then getting ready and as if you have to like go from your place to the test center. So if you feel like, if you feel that you cannot flip over the pages, you won't be doing like flipping over the pages when you are on the way to your test center, then please do not do anything, right? So you have to simulate the test day at home.
I agree with you. It's an excellent tip, trust me, because of the fact that most of the students nowadays are night owls. So they sleep late and they get up late. So it can happen you are dozed off during that time. If it's a morning, 8 o'clock, you have to reach there. So at this works, so at least for 2 days before you should start practicing this.
Yeah, so students must reach at 7:15 there, because 7:45 gates are open and by 8 o'clock gates are closed. So just to avoid the last reaching at the test center at the last moment anxiety, so it's better to reach the test center early, right? And you need to be ready with the do's and don'ts thing, and do take a printout beforehand of the admission ticket, and make sure your passport is ready. All the identification proof that you are carrying with you, they are all ready with you. That's really important.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session for me also, because I love maths. The kind of tricks that you showed was excellent. And all the best to all the students. Do practice it. Little strategy need to be followed. If you were not, using bubble sheet for your mock test, for your preparation, please start doing it. Please start practicing, like, filling the bubble sheet by, doing one passage, answering 10, 11 questions, and managing your time. When time is left, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, 15 minutes are left, at that time you should be, doing question by question, so that you don't, you have done on your answer question paper, but not on the answer sheet. That should not be there. And yes, closer to the date, we are coming up on 4th May, 5 o'clock, with Anusheel ma'am only, because we had a wonderful session with her for 3 days. She will be telling us do's and don'ts just prior to your SAT examination, as it is on 7th. We are doing this session on 4th. Please do watch it and don't miss out anything. And all the best. And I'm sure you will do wonderful, wonderful result with flying colors. You'll be coming and you'll get that SAT batch of top performer of India. And Anusheel, any closing remarks for the students, please?
It's just that you need to trust yourself. You
Yes,
have been preparing for long, so trust yourself, trust the strategies that you have been following. Just don't take any shortcuts. And if you just feel like that you are not able to concentrate or focus, then you can just go out, take a round. Maybe you can go for if you have a park in your colony, you can just go there, take a round, and then come back and then start afresh. Right? You can do a bit of exercise, maybe 5-minute jogging or something like that, or maybe a little bit of meditation might help you to enhance your concentration.
And don't be overconfident, especially in the English section.
Yeah.
Because English people take it very lightly, because I can write and walk and speak in English. So don't take it that way. Practice it. Practice is the mantra for anywhere you want to success. And all the best to you. Take precaution. COVID is again rising. So wear mask. Do take care of your health. That is very important, so that you can write your exams in a healthy and happy mindset, with a happy mindset. Thanks to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Join on 4th. with do's and don'ts. It will be a very short session of 15-20 minutes. Thank you for joining with us. All the best to you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
and all
Anusheel.
the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.